horror fans, once again, it is me, the Horror Miser Money G, and I welcome you to Shark Week. So here we go. We're continuing my Jaws series for Shark Week as we now go for the sequel to the 1976 blockbuster Jaws. Jaws 2. Yes. Now, Jaws 2 is a 1978 American thriller film. It was directed by Gernot Schwark. Yeah, I probably mispronounced that. This was co-written by Carl Gottlieb, and it's the sequel to Steven Spielberg's Jaws, and it's the second installment to the Jaws franchise. Now, the film stars Roy Scheider. He returns as Chief Martin Brody, along with Lauren Gray and Maury Hamilton, reprising their respective roles as Martin's wife, Ellie Burton, and Mayor Larry Vaughn. It also stars Joseph Mokusko, Jeremy Kramer, Colin Wilcox, Ann Dunsbury, Mark Werner, Susan French, Barry Cole, and Donna Wilkes, and Gary Springer. The plot concerns Chief Brody suspecting that another great white shark is terrorizing the fictional seaside resort of Amityville Island following a series of incidents and disappearances, and his suspicions are eventually proven true. Now, obviously, after the success of Jaws, we all kind of felt as though that we will not see the end of this series, about what an effect and how much Jaws had, not only as far as box office wise, but how influential that movie was to modern culture. We all became obsessed with sharks, great white sharks. Hence, this is the reason why we now have Shark Week. Now, while I was researching this film, I wanted to find out what led to Universal's decision to go on ahead and do a sequel. And basically, Universal wanted a sequel to Jaws early in the success of the original film. Now, obviously, Steven Spielberg eventually said that making a sequel was just a cheap, carny trick, and he did not even respond to the producers when they asked him to direct Jaws 2. Producers Brown and Zurich realized someone else would have to produce the film if they did not, and preferred to be in charge of the production themselves. So he basically said that, no, I'm not going to do it. It's just a cheap, carny trick. And even though he did find some type of way, because I think at the time he was probably doing Close Encounters of the Third Time at the time, and Universal tried their best to get him on board, but he said, nope, I'm not going to do it. It's just a cheap, carny trick, so I'm not going to direct this film. One of the other things Spielberg said was that he already felt as though he'd done the definitive shark movie. There was no need to continue to do this movie, and plus of all the problems the original Jaws had, he said, if I would have done a sequel, I had such a terrible time at sea in the first film. So he did not want to go through that hassle of trying to do the same thing again. So he said, hell no, I ain't doing it. Now, despite Spielberg's rejection, the studio said, oh no, we're going to go ahead and do a sequel anyway. And it led to very, very production overruns and costs. Went over 18 months pre-production process. Now, the original plan, the original plot of the story was to actually do something about the sinking of the USS Indianapolis, the story that Quint told in the first film. Unfortunately, Universal Studios president, Sidney Sheinberg, thought that Slacker's treatment of the film was intriguing, but he rejected the idea. He said, nope, we're not going to do it. We're going to do another story. Now, obviously, since he couldn't get Spielberg to direct the film, they decided to get this guy named John Dean Hancock. He was chosen to direct the film. Now, he began filming in 1977, but nearly after a month of filming, they didn't like the dark tone. They felt the film was they wanted to be a more lighthearted and action-oriented film. He also ran into problems with Sheinberg, who suggested that Hancock and Tyson, which was Sheinberg's wife, actress Lauren Gray, should go out on the boat and help rescue the kids. That's when they decided to put the kids into the storyline. And when told this idea, he said, over my dead body. The next draft of the film was turned into Gray not going out to the sea, which I thought was a decent idea. I guess that's the reason why I decided to do that particular plot in Jaws: The Revenge. Now, unfortunately, Hancock was fired after all the trouble he had trying to do what the studios and Universal and producers wanted. So there was a chance that maybe we can get Spielberg back over to direct the film. Now, at the time, Spielberg said because of his contract with Close Encounters of the Third Kind, he would not be able to work on the film for a future year. The gap is too long for the production company. He said, if I can do the film, but you're going to have to wait until I'm done with Close Encounters of the Third Kind. The production and producers felt, no, there's too big of a gap for producers because obviously they wanted to hurry up and get this on. So they got Jonit Swark, I don't know how to pronounce his name, to direct the film. Now, one of the interesting things Swark had, as far as how he wanted to film the sequel, he felt as though that, hey, look, everyone knows it's a shark. We don't have to try to do the same thing what they did, what Spielberg did in the first film. So he wanted to show the shark as possible. Unfortunately, that's probably the reason why the film doesn't have the same type of suspense and intensity the first film had. But I don't think you could ever capture the original film did, what Spielberg did in that first film. I don't think any other type of director was going to capture the effectiveness in that first film. So it doesn't matter whether or not they show the shark or not. You're not going to capture it because the audience already knows what's happening. So even though I understood what he was trying to do, he went, hey, look, they already know it's a shark, so let's go ahead and show it. But, that also led to some other problems. Let's talk about Roy Schneider. Now, he decided to reprise his role of Martin Brody. Now, in 1977, he had quit the role of Michael Brodsky in The Deer Hunter 2 weeks before starting to film the sequel to Jaws over creative differences. Now, this was interesting because all the craziness happened between him and the director of Jaws 2. They clashed almost pretty all the time. He even decided the best way he could do it, he could get out of his contract, that he would say, look, I was actually going to plead insanity because this was crazy. But despite all the problems he had with the director, he decided to do the best job he could, and he wanted to make Brody believable. And I believe, thanks to his acting, and despite the atmosphere was tense on the set, he actually does a pretty good job, and that's why the film is considered the best out of the three sequels, mainly because of Roy Schneider's performance as Martin Brody. Now, we all know what the plot of this film is. If you break it all down, it plays like a slasher film. Even this came out in '78, way before we had any of the slasher films. I believe this came out before Halloween came out, and of course, a couple years later, we get Friday the 13th and Jason, and before we get the slasher craze, this film plays like a slasher film. This film focuses on Mike and Sean, Martin Brody's sons, in this one right here. And he decides to go to work, but he wants to take his boat out and get with girls and take all their boats and do whatever teenagers do. We see earlier in the film two teenagers out having sex on the boat. The one gets attacked and eaten by the shark. And then we see this group of teenagers there. All of a sudden, they're attacked by the shark, and they're all focusing on this group of kids throughout the rest of the film. I say right around the second act is when the shark attacks the kids, and they destroy half their boats, and the film just focuses on them. There's one ridiculous scene in the movie where a helicopter finds the kids, lands in the water, tries to get them into the boat, try to drag them to shore. The shark attacks them because that's a meal source for him. He's not letting that go. Drags the helicopter down. Very ridiculous scene. Now, despite the lack of tension and suspense, we do get some nice, decent kills in the film right here. We still have the decent score by John Williams, and he returned once again with the score. And again, because of Martin Brody's performance. And like I said, some of the kids, they're okay, but some of them are quite annoying. But like I said, this plays like a slasher film. And then we get to the end where we got Chief Brody is hooks up. He finds a kid. He hooks up the electrical cable from the town, and he gets the sharks to bottle it, and we get our Frankie Shark. Now, the film was successful. It made $208 million in the box office on a $30 million budget, so the film was quite successful. Like I said, it's obviously it's not as good as the original, but it did serve its purpose. You know, a lot of people wanted to go see it because people became fascinated with sharks, and when I went to go see it, I was deeply impressed with it. You know, like I said, it plays. You know, later on now. I know back then we didn't really put that much effort into it, but now it plays just like a slasher. It's just that we have a shark instead of a guy with a knife. So although I did enjoy Jaws 2, it was a decent follow-up to the original film. I was not expecting anything like the first film, but I did enjoy it. If I would rank this, if I were to really rank the film, I would give this 2.5 out of my bloody 5 coins. Yes, 2.5 out of my bloody 5 coins. Like I said, it's a decent film. It's a decent horror film, you want to call it that way. It does have some suspense. Obviously, the shark does not look as the shark looks totally phony to in my estimates. There's a scene where the shark attacks these two women on the boat, and the shark just looks totally phony when he comes up and tries to bite the woman, and then she gets burned, and then we have that fake burn shark throughout the movie. Oh God! I mean, and they had more problems with the shark during pre-production and production. Can't break it down. It's like they didn't learn their lessons from their previous movie. But like I said, it was decent enough, and like I said, it is the best out of the 3 sequels. So there you have it. That's my reviews of Jaws 2 for Shark Week. What was your expectations when you went to go see Jaws 2? Did you see it in the theaters? When you first saw it, did you think that this would be better than the original? Or were you felt as though it's like, nah, it's not going to be good, but I did enjoy it? Leave your comments in the comment section below and tell me what you thought about Jaws 2. And there you have it. That's my video for today, guys. Hope you did enjoy it. And if you did, please give it a thumbs up. Once again, if you're new here, please hit that subscriber button and ring that notification bell. That way you'll be notified anytime when I put a new video such as this one. Also, all my social media links will be in the description box below as well. Once again, my name is Lamont Smith, better known as the Horror Miser Monty G. And always remember, horror rules. I'll see you in my next video. I'm out.